We're now late into the FTC DECODE season, and today let's talk about some of the strategies that the top teams are doing to be able to achieve those world records. Now, of course, Red Alliance is definitely starting to take away in this score, but I think part of the reason why it's coming up so well is because of that. I'm Coach Pratt, and I've been teaching robotics since for over a decade now, and I've mentored FTC teams to winning multiple national championships and Inspire Awards. Today, we're going to take a look at a couple of techniques that I've seen teams using that I think are going to be the make or break points as you move towards world championships and premier-based events. So first up here, I want to show off Team Undefined 19112, and I want to show off a specific section of the robot reveal here. And this is something I think that's really going to make or break it on the autonomous, particularly for far side-based autonomouses. Now, their video shot here, what you're going to see is their robot has pathing set up to be able to pick up specific artifacts from the edge here. And my guess is it's not specific pathing as much as it is taking the limelight, seeing what there is in front of it, and then being able to drive itself forward and be able to pick up those artifacts as well and align itself autonomously. I think to be able to get some really high score autonomous, this might be something that's going to break over what teams are going to be able to achieve, particularly on that far side instead of just blind pathing. So if you see this robot here, it's going to sync itself up where it needs to go, path to be able to pick itself back up, and then do a couple launches. Again, do a little bit of calculation and say, okay, let's take a look with limelight. Where do we need to pick up? Go pick it up based on that pathing and then come back one more time. And then do the same thing one last time, pick it up. Is there any pathing I need to go to? And then run it back up. I really do think that things like that are really going to kind of take your robot to that next level peak that things really need to get to. And you still have enough time before World Championships at this point to be able to program something like this in as well. So it's certainly something to consider. And it's certainly something that we've been seeing in a lot of these matches, in that there are a lot of artifacts that get themselves kind of caught up in this back corner. So to be able to know where to go in terms of clumps, I think is going to be quite important. As well, going to an earlier section of the robot reveal, something I think is also going to be critical is to be able, if your robot has a turret, is the ability for it to rotate around quite quickly and then come back to its initial position. So for instance, if we can take a look at this, we've seen some robots that are capable of doing things like this before. Really well-tuned PDF controllers for those turrets is definitely something to keep track on. I've got a video tutorial down below on how you can tune a PD controller to be able to rotate towards these. And in the future, I'll also have a video tutorial on how you can do a PDF controller to be able to get far more bit advanced tuning to be able to create things like this. So keep your eye out for that. So excellent job to Team Undefined here. Super impressive robot. I think that some of those, we've already seen that some of these techniques have been taking them towards advanced movements inside of their region and then going on as well. Something I also want to showcase here, we've seen a lot of teams do this. 24909 is the ability to be able to shoot while you are moving. And the reason I think this is going to be one of those game-breaking strategies is the defense is going to be played. I think when we start getting to the World Championships and the Premier events, when defense starts being played really heavy, the ability to shoot and move at the same time is a bit of a you can kind of call it a risk mitigation strategy or an affordance, so that if you do get hit by another team and you have to move while you've gotten hit, it makes it more likely that your artifacts are still capable of going in. So there was a follow-up comment that I wanted to highlight from another user here at BigBen6748. So it seemed like this team was using pinpoint and odometry-based values to figure out where they are in the zone. And if they're already in the zone, then it just automatically fires into the goal as well. So that's another one of those strategies I think is going to be really important for teams as they move towards the Premier and World Championship level, is the ability to use something like a Kalman filter to be able to have pinpoint location using something like Pager Pathing or Roadrunner or your own custom pathing software to know where you are in physical space. And then using a camera system, be it a webcam, be it a limelight, be it a Husky lens, to be able to then update where you are in space based off of that April tag for the goal. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get hit, you're going to drift on some of your pinpoint locations, your robot might come up off the floor, and you're no longer in the location that you think you are. So being able to use something like a Kalman filter or even just a simple push a button when you're looking at the April tag to be able to reset where you are in space might also be a really useful thing. So that's one of those things I think teams could really be focusing on as they move towards the World Championship level, is the ability to be able to shoot and move. On top of that, I wanted to highlight a team that's been doing really well here is, let's see, it was Team Circuit Breakers 10-4-3-5. Take a look at this robot down in the bottom right-hand corner. One thing I want to highlight about this robot as they were moving towards, I believe that they ended up with a state record for the Iowa Championship, is that this robot has a fixed shooter. It does not have a turret. And one thing I want to highlight for teams is just the importance of that consistency coming up. So we can see just how good, their PDF controller is for being able to rotate themselves towards that April tag to be able to launch in. And as they're firing, I was watching, about 2 minutes of this, and I would say that of the artifacts that they shot in, they missed maybe 2 or 3 the entire game. So the importance of being able to hit somewhere on that target where they're likely to be able to stay inside the goal is absolutely critical. High throughput is really important, but high percentage of scored in on that throughput is also really important. It's also something that I wanted to highlight here is that you don't need a turret to be able to be successful. We've seen a lot of teams having a turret-based design. However, you can still have a fixed shooter position and rotate your robot and still perform at a very high level. I believe at the end of this match, it ended up being 330, 310 without foul points for this team. That is super impressive, particularly for a fixed shooter, and being able to rotate on mechanism chassis is a thing. Where I do think that a fixed chassis starts to fall apart a little bit is when teams start having heavy defense played against them. And that's something I've been talking about all season, and something I think teams really need to practice more is a lot more defense. So for instance, in this shoot while you are moving, is your shoot and move algorithm still resilient if a robot comes up and hits you while you're moving around? A lot of teams are still practicing in such a way that they are thinking it is in previous seasons where, for the most part, FTC robot-to-robot collision across opposing alliances was not allowed, whereas this season it's almost encouraged. In fact, I would say it is actually encouraged to have a lot more defense being played. So let's take a look at some matches here with some higher defense being played. And this is from the NTX Sapphire Nationals. I'm going to skip back to the autonomous in this, but I want you to focus here on where you could have had a lot of different defense being played. There's lots of opportunities for defense to be played. I think it's part of the reason why this match ended up being so close as it was in the end. Now, in the end, Blue didn't end up winning by 322 to 325. I think it's very likely that Red could have won this match had they played a little bit more defense and a little bit more defense intelligently. So let's take a look at when we skip past autonomous here. Let's take a look at some opportunities for where defense could have been being played. So for instance, this is a great example of Blue hitting defense onto Red. Red was firing, 71-72, gives Red a little clip, and then moves on. Same thing being here, 21-22 coming in, giving them a little hit before they move on. I think that's a great little bump and run, and it does cause this Blue Alliance to have to spend some time to be able to realign themselves back in. If you watch this again, as Blue Alliance comes in, we can see that the Red Alliance gives them a little smack, and then it ends up giving them some time for them to have to relocate themselves before they're firing. And that was almost, 1.5, 2 seconds on readjusting. Now, we just saw this robot here move right past. Take a look at 2171. They could have given 7172 is clearly lining themselves up for some shots here. This would have been a good time to give them a little hit as they're moving along. May have been likely to move things in. Now, there's also another fault, something I've been saying the entire season. Stay out of your opposing alliance's gauge zone. And we can see that 2177 actually that might be a little later in this match. They do come up and they do end up bullying another opponent here right before, I believe it's right here while they're in that gate section. Don't do that. That ends up being a major foul. Really bad idea. Again, right here would have been a bit of a miss. Another great opportunity. You're going to see that 7172 is going to come up to be able to fire here, and 2171 is going to be coming right along here. If they were to hit them as they were firing right there, would have not really slowed them, would have slowed down Red to be able to shoot some of their own artifacts in, while also hindering Blue. And when you start to see, and a pattern that's starting to emerge in some of these matches, is that some of this matches have some of the highest scoring, the world records that are coming up here, are matches where there's not a lot of heavy defense being played amongst teams. And that is because, for the most part, teams are sticking to their sides. And I think that a lot of teams are not being prepared for defense being played against them. And it really is going to be, in my opinion, one of those things that's really going to separate teams doing incredibly well in the playoffs versus doing pretty well and pretty consistently on their world championships on that premier section is looking for those opportunities to be able to give a lot of those hits, a lot of those taps as those robots comes by. Because 2171, their pathing is doing really well, but they've missed a lot of opportunities to be able to hit other robots, bully them out of the way, push them out of the way, play some defense as they're going on. 3801 has been playing some better defense this match, but there are things that I really think teams are going to have to pay attention to, because if you do let some of these robots that have very high RPM drivetrains and very high throughputs just be able to move and collect, move and collect, move and collect the entire match, you will end up getting outscored by these teams. We've got another example here with the Cheesy Bites and Midnight Madness. I believe this was from a United States match. I'm unsure where. It's the Northern California Regional Championships. And let's take a look at the gold division here. Again, I want to highlight some of the defenses being played along in some of these. Particularly, take a look in the bottom section here. There, again, great opportunity for this purple team to be able to come in, give them a smack, and you see that this blue team does do that, or the red team coming in to be able to hit the blue alliance. Any opportunity, for the most part, that this team gets, they come over and hit. So much so that it's actually forced this other team to now come up and shoot in the close distance because they're not capable of dealing with some of that defense, and that their turret is not really quite resilient enough to be able to manage for that. That's a great example of defense as it's pushing it around. And not to fault some of these teams, but it is some of that importance of we need to be playing that a lot more. And we can see that because of that alliance with red, that ends up pushing them up quite a bit. Now, of course, red alliance is definitely starting to take away in this score, but I think part of the reason why it's coming up so well is because of that defense that's being played, particularly because of 7854's defense being played in this bottom right-hand corner. Just exceptional work on that. It also does allow there's being no defense being played against the other red alliance here, where they have just an opportunity to just be able to go pick up and move right in. For example, this purple robot definitely could have, as that other robot's in their secret zone, come up, give it a little tap as they go in. So rather than the purple robot constantly making cycles back and forth here, they could have swung around, gave a little tap to the red robot who's trying to get inside of their own blue secret zone before they come in and shoot from the close triangle. That's definitely something as a strategy that you can do. So I think that doing purposeful practice defense is really going to separate some of these robots, particularly when we start getting into these high-level world championships, high-level regionals, and the premier events for that run. I'm curious on your thoughts on what kind of defense your team has been running for its own trials. If you'd like a robot or you see a match you think that would be beneficial for the rest of the community to see, I've got a submission form down below that you can submit in the FTC Fridays. And as always, best of luck out there this season.